Hello everybody out there in Wrestling with Egos land. It's your boy Brian, part of the Wrestling with Egos team, and I am the intellectual savior of the wrestling masses. I guess you could call this a fireside chat, even though I'm down in the lair of Wrestling with Egos. I'm going to be using these fireside chats to try to expand the reach of them a little bit in the coming year. And I figured I would talk about a specific event in wrestling history and tell you why I think it was a great booking decision. And that event that we're going to talk about today is WCW's Bash at the Beach, 1996. This is the event, of course, where Scott Hall and Kevin Nash had invaded WCW and found themselves in the main event where they promised the reveal of a mystery third man, and nobody had any idea at the time who it was. And this is a bit of a challenge for me because, as I've said on the show before, I did not watch WCW that much growing up, but I have seen this event many times since then, and earlier this week I decided I'm going to take a close inspection of this event and talk about why WCW got it right in the moment. The first reason I think that WCW got it right in the moment was the atmosphere they created. I think this is the first part of any successful wrestling booking decision. You have to set the scene. You have to, put all your cards on the table and kind of let everybody know what they're dealing with here. In the months leading up to this event, WCW had developed an atmosphere of unpredictability where you never knew from week to week what was going to happen, so you had to tune in. Eric Bischoff has said this numerous times on interviews and podcasts that he's done. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, who were formerly from WWE, WWF at that time, showed up and began causing unrest. They began attacking people. They began bullying people on interviews and commentary with their antics and their promos. And to the commentary team's credit, Tony Schiavone especially portrayed his discomfort with this. He was not used to people treating him that way. And this was not the way WCW was used to doing things. The atmosphere of the event itself, the night of Bash at the Beach, was uncertain as well because the actual event, a lot of the action on the undercard seemed secondary to the fact that the commentary team of Dusty Rhodes, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and Tony Schiavone, all they wanted to talk about was what was going to happen in the main event. Who's the third man? Who's the third man? I don't know. This doesn't make me feel very good. And they were carping each other. I mean, they were cutting each other off and, how could you say that? And, what are you talking about? And things of that nature. And even having state troopers, police officers stationed at various places throughout the arena also lended an air of unpredictability and gravity to the proceedings. So you've got this atmosphere, this powder keg type atmosphere, where you don't really know what's going to happen, what kind of a swerve are we going to see. And that brings us to part two of why this was a great booking decision, the main event. Because let's face it, gang, you can create all the atmosphere you want, and if your main event doesn't deliver, if your main event doesn't get people talking, I can't believe they did that. Did you see that? Who would have thought that they would have done that? Then you really haven't accomplished anything. And on paper, at the outset of the way they were booking this main event, you had a three-person team of Lex Luger, Randy Macho Man Savage, and Sting fighting for WCW and everything we believe in against only two outsiders, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. So on paper, you think, oh, well, it's 3-on-2, so the good guys have the advantage, don't they? Well, less than 5 minutes into this match, you have Lex Luger getting carted off on a stretcher after a particularly bad bump in the corner. Now you flip the numbers advantage. Now it's 2-on-2, and the outsiders still keep talking about how there's a third. We got our surprise buddy. We got our third guy, and he's in the building. And all the interviewers all night long cannot figure out anything about who it might have been. And then at a certain point in that match, Randy Savage took a pretty bad bump. He tried to get out from underneath, elbow drop by Kevin Nash, and Savage was getting up off the mat while Kevin Nash's elbow came out in his head, compressing his neck. Not very good, especially with somebody who had all the miles on him that Randy Savage had by this point. So now you've got one guy left. You've got Sting. And Sting is getting beaten down, and he's taking all of this pounding. And by the way, the match itself is never going to be mistaken for a Matt Classic, because you got a bunch of guys who are basically bruisers, with the exception of Sting. I would classify Luger, Savage, at this point in his career anyway, Hall, and Nash as all bruisers. So we're not getting a 5-star match that's going to be talked about forever. But again, you've got the commentary team trading their theories about what's going to happen. How can we get the advantage back? And let's get somebody else here. I know we had the lottery already, but there's no rules. Let's throw them out the window. So then the crowd starts reacting, because coming down the ramp, past a couple of smirking state troopers, comes Hulk Hogan. And what's particularly interesting about how Hulk Hogan comes down to the ring is there's no entrance music. There's no screaming and yelling. There's no shirt tearing. There's no getting the crowd on your side. He's just walking down to the ring with an expression on his face that's equal parts, I can't believe I'm about to do what I'm about to do, and I hope it works. So he gets in the ring, he shoves the referee out of the way, Hall and Nash back off, as if to say, oh my God, I don't know what you're going to do. Hulkster tears his shirt off, hits Savage with a couple of leg drops, and by that point, the heel turn was on, brother. Hulk Hogan was the third man. Now, why was this such a brilliant booking decision? Of all of the people that you would think, who could we turn heel? Hulk Hogan had never really, on this national level, worked as a heel before. When he broke in Vern Gagne's territory at the very beginning, he was kind of a heel, a stuck-up, arrogant heel. But when he made it big in Vince McMahon's WWF in the mid-'80s, he was white meat babyface, say your prayers, do your training, and take your vitamins. And he was a merchandise mover, and people talked about him at the water cooler. How could you possibly think about turning this man heel after everything he's done for the wrestling business? Well, that's the genius of it. A lot of wrestlers would tell you they like working heel a lot more than they like working babyface, and Hulk Hogan thought, this is going to be a challenge for me. There was never really an official decision rendered in this match either, because the referee was thrown out. And when Hogan, quote-unquote, covered Savage, it was Kevin Nash that gave the pinfall, and the commentary team was like, we're not going to recognize that decision. You've got to be kidding me. Which brings us to the aftermath. And the aftermath of this match was unlike anything I personally at the time had ever seen before in professional wrestling. Gene Okerlund comes into the ring. Let me tell you something, Mean Gene. And the fans begin pelting everybody in the ring with garbage. Soda cups and hot dog wrappers, and I thought I saw batteries and stuff being thrown in the ring, and just anything you could find. And by the end of this interview, this shoot interview at the end of the match, you have a ring full of garbage. And Mean Gene was quivering the whole time, and his voice was breaking while he was trying to get some answers out of Hogan. And Hogan talked about, I did everything I could for you fans, and you turned your back on me, and everything I did for charity and everything I did for this wrestling business, and all these people who are wrestling now wouldn't be in this business if it wasn't because of me. Laying out valid criticisms, valid points. That's how you know you're doing good heel work. When the heel is justified, and the heel's not just lying for the sake of lying, he's got some valid points. And he cited his frustrations with the broken promises of Ted Turner and WCW. And Okerlund couldn't believe it, which leads me to believe that so many people were kept in the dark about this. Those reactions are so genuine, so of the moment, that nobody outside of a small group of people had to know what was going to happen. And then the show ends with the commentators unable to say much of anything, except, Hulk Hogan, you can go to hell. As the harbinger of what WCW would soon become dawned on them. For all of us at Wrestling with Egos, thank you very much for indulging me with listening to this Fireside Chat, even though the fire is nowhere to be found. Please subscribe here on YouTube and on your podcast platforms. Spread the word because we love the interaction with our listeners. And you will be seeing more of these Fireside Chats in the very near future. Thank you for listening to Why Bash at the Beach was in fact a great booking decision. I'm Brian. Thank you for watching. Happy New Year. And we'll talk to you soon.